You'll watch till the end of the video unless you want to get a really, really, really bad cramp. I created a Discord because someone wanted that. I guess I'll link it randomly here and there. Probably in the pinned comment. I don't know. If you want to join. I don't really care, to be honest. I don't use Discord that much, but someone wanted it, so there you go. Alright, what are we talking about today? So what? So I'm a spider. So what? Jesus Christ. Why did I want to talk about this today? Well, I mean, normally I talk about stuff that's a little more... I mean, I don't want to say unknown, but it's not as relevant. But today I kind of wanted to talk about something that I just like, because, I don't know, I feel like it. I'm in the mood. If you haven't seen this series before, what's the gist? Well, I'm going to give you a rating off the bat, and then go into why I gave you that rating. That's really it. Just, you know, here's a rating. I'm going to go into why. Not really going to spoil anything. I'm just going to kind of lay out why you either should or shouldn't watch a series, read a series, whatever. I'm going to give this a 9. I really, 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 really like it. It's one of those series that I think is just really fun. I don't know, it's just right up my alley, I guess. I think objectively speaking, you could probably bump that down a bit, you know, maybe a point or two. But it's my speed, and this is my channel, so... eh. Well, what's the gist? Well, I'm the isekai guy, so of course it's an isekai. This is the main character as well as this. They're brought into another world as, would have guessed it, a spider! I think it's the only one I've seen with a spider, so I guess that I'll give it a little credit there. At least it picked a different animal, you know? Not like dragon or wolf. At least it did something different. I also think it's pretty creative. Nice. Her spider abilities are used very, very well. She does things like making maces out of webbing and bases and things like that in the early stages. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's pretty cool in how they actually use the spider-like abilities, I would say, for the most part. You know, there's points where, you know, she uses her different eyes for different things, like, oh, she has multiple abilities that utilize an eye. Well, she can use one in each eye and then use like 8 of them at once. It's pretty cool. I like it. I think like the creativity in the fights is probably one of the major positives to the series. I think there's 2 main things I really like about this. There's a lot of world building. Like the world, you know, it goes, you know, just up and up and up and up and up and up, and they just keep building on this over and over and over again. I love it. That's like one of my favorite things in any series. Just the more world building you have, the better. And I think the other thing is just sheer creativity in terms of fights, like her using her webs for different things, new abilities and whatnot. I think there is a bit of a drop-off later on because they kind of did most of what they planned, I imagine. But it's still good, don't get me wrong. So, what are some of the aspects of the series? Well, I mean, the main thing, the major point is she is reincarnated. Like, if we're looking, like, at a timeline, right? If we're looking at, like, a chronological timeline, her and, yes, this is a series with their classmates, they're all reincarnated at the same time. But because she's a spider, her ability to do things is at like an accelerated rate. So she ends up being able to progress, you know, and actually do things in this world while her classmates are, you know, infants and humans and things like that, so they're not really able to do anything. So a big thing about the series is kind of playing with that time scale and like, when is she here? When is she there? Is she here? Like, you don't really know where she is. You're wondering, like, who is she in the future? Things like that. It's pretty fun. I don't really think this is spoiling or anything. I mean, it's very clear right off the bat, like, something's up with the time, and you're kind of just wondering, like, which character she is. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think how they go about her character in the present day of the story, it's pretty cool. I like the idea. I think it's fun, and like I said, one of the things this series gets a lot of props for is creativity. and it's certainly creative. um, Now, I can't just keep talking about positives. There's definitely a negative. Whenever you see like human characters in this series, like just any kind of human character, the quality just drops significantly. Almost every non-human character is 20 times better. I wouldn't say these guys are the worst. I'm just kind of using cover art for this video because I don't really feel like sifting through a million panels when you could just read the series after I tell you to. But most of the time, if you go to like there's basically like two perspectives, I guess you could say, throughout the series. There's like the main character's perspective, and then there's like the human classmates that she came with. We kind of see, you know, connections between these two at times, but for the most part, they're kind of treading their own paths, I guess, and then like they kind of just intersect at times, and then like go back to spreading out and going again. So it's like, for the most part, you know, you'll just see like, oh, they fought a little bit here, or they did something here. But then like they'll go off on their own here, and they'll go off on their own here, and you'll see like most of the non-humans traveling along this path, most of the humans traveling along this path. Now here's the biggest weakness of the series. The human side is so boring. Nothing happens. They'll get in a fight, and you're like, okay, well that sucked. And then every once in a while you'll have this cross, and you're like, wow, that was actually pretty fun. And then you'll be like, oh, I can't wait for another one. Then boom, another one. You're like, oh man, that was great. And then you'll go back to this, and you're like, I don't like any of you characters at all. All you care, like all the characters just suck. I don't know. None of the humans are interesting. What else is relevant? Yeah, here's another aspect, I guess, that's kind of fun. The whole like demon lord idea that you often see in these kinds of stories. It's pretty fun in this series, and like I like the creativity of using this demon lord. Also, like the fights between them are great. I think there's a little, after this whole scenario, there's a little bit of like a tonal shift where they just kind of do like a full, you know, twist around 180 just into like a completely different tone. But it's not bad, it's just different. Like I've seen series where this is really bad. I don't remember the name of the series specifically because it's been a really long time. But it's like I don't know, it's like the like level 999 villager or something. That one, it's like, you know, you're going along this nice timeline, right? You're traveling along, and then it just does like a woo and just goes off in some crazy direction. Like it's like we're going fantasy and now we're sci-fi. It's like, I don't know. That story was way worse. This one I feel like is just kind of like, it's a little weird that we're doing this now. But I wouldn't say it's like bad. It's just like a little bit of a different vibe. I will say here's an aspect that I think is kind of surprising. Her classmates that are more like monsters, I guess, are 20 times better written. So the author, I think, is clearly just better at writing monsters than they are humans. A little weird to say, but like all of the monster characters are just 20 times more interesting than any human character. And I would also say that includes, like, you know, I don't know. Basically, here's the gist. If a character is just a pure human, they suck. Like, they're just, no one loves them. They're awful. Who cares? If a character is like a subhuman, they're kind of like, they could be really bad, they could be really good. So you're kind of getting like an either, you know, like one or the other, right? And then if you get a character that's like a monster, I would say 99 out of 100 times it's a good character. Like this series does monsters so well. I super enjoy it. And I also think the world building is like, you know, the game elements and like the overall world building are just done so much better in the monster path than they are in most other paths. I think the only one you could say is maybe the elves fall in line with being like pretty good in terms of subhumans. Um, I don't know, but it's just like the human storylines I think bog the series down the most. Like whenever you go to those human parts, like you're just traveling along and then just and then you have to go through it for a while, then it goes back up and you're like, oh okay, we're okay, and then So I mean, I think if you just kind of, if you like looked at a chapter guide and just skipped every human part in this series, I think you'd love it 20 times more. um, to be honest, I think that's the main criticism. The human parts are just like so awful. I mean, I love the game elements. There's like a level idea, which I think is super fun. I love just seeing levels shoot up and just seeing like what she gets and things like that. I like the skill idea and then just seeing like the crazy amount of skills, you know? Just constantly getting new skills. I think that's super fun. It's just, you know, I love those systems. And I also love like you know, like the world building with the different characters. Like there's like a god character that's talking to her specifically. There's connections, you know, between this god and like the demon lord. There's just it's so, all of the non-human stuff is just so good that it's almost disappointing whenever you have a human point. You're just like, can we move back to the good stuff, please? Like I don't want to be here right now. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are the main elements, so I guess we could just finish on the old S.A. You might ask, what is the SAE? Well, it's story, art, and enjoyment. Story-wise, I'm not going to lie, because, like, the high points are like a 9, but the low points are like a 5. Like, it goes so back and forth between highs and lows, it's hard. Art-wise, I really like the style, but I can't necessarily say it's going and doing anything super amazing, so I'm probably going to give it an 8. And then enjoyment for me, I would have to say probably a 9 or a 10. The thing about 10s is, like, I feel like a 10 is only when something is literally the best in a series, and I have, like, 16 volumes of Overlord, so I feel hard pressed saying this is the best in like this whole idea. I would say they're very similar to each other, so I'd feel hard pressed saying that. Overall, in terms of ratings, I'm going to say it's between like an 8 and a 9. I think that's a pretty fair rating. I think if you can go past the human elements, it's a 9. If you're stuck on the human elements, it's an 8. The human points are really boring, and I won't lie to you, like they are boring. But I feel like if you can get past it, and there's not like a ton, they're not all the time, but if you can move past that, I feel like it gets relatively interesting. Also, I think the human points are kind of improving, like a little bit. You know, they're slowly upticking, so I think later on in the series they'll be significantly better, but I do think the start of a series matters. Like, just like, you know, if a series is incredible at the later half but sucks at the beginning, I feel like that kind of matters, you know. I can't give it like a whole bunch of slack for that. I don't know. I personally would lean toward the 9. I can forgive. I would say a 9 for enjoyment's relatively reasonable. I think if we're talking between a 5 and a 9 here, if I had to be super honest, I think an 8 would probably be a good compromise. Art-wise, I think an 8 is totally fair. So, I don't know. I would say we're talking like an 8.5 or a 9. You know, one of these, if we're being like super objective. Yeah, I don't know. I think overall it's a pretty fun series. I think the story is definitely where we see fault. I think the art is solid consistently, and I think the enjoyment is relatively good overall. It's just a little, you know, a little bit of a drop off at times with the story. overall, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I'd appreciate if you could like, comment, subscribe. You know, maybe leave another story you want me to talk about down below. You know, even if I haven't, you know, even if I have read it, I'll read it again. I don't really care. Just anything's fine. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'll see ya.